Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spider-Man edition of Voxel Viewpoint, right here on Voxel Voice. I'm Ryan Shepard, and with me we've got Derrick,
Hey, how's it going?
and we've got Leigh.
Hello.
And we're here to talk about Spider-Man. Our little review, discussion, just talking about our experiences playing the game. So, if you don't know, Spider-Man came out on the PlayStation 4, an Insomniac game. I'm a big fan of most of what Insomniac has done in the past, and this is kind of like one of their bigger breaks, I would say, like being able to be in charge of such a big franchise, and I think for the most part they did a pretty good job with it. We'll get into all the details about that later on, but first of all, let's go down and talk about a little bit where we are in the progression of the game. Just so we don't spoil anything for each other, and we can kind of give people an idea of where we are versus where they are. So in case they're worried about spoilers too. So I'm about 70% in, a little over 70%. And I've been doing kind of like trying to balance the story stuff and the open world stuff. Maybe the game makes you do that. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. But yeah, that's about as far in as I am, and I won't talk too much about how far into the story we are. I think we're gonna stop at the Halloween party. That's as far as you've been gotten, Derrick, in the story?
Yeah, that's about as far as I got, but for sake of talking about it, I'm not really worried about any spoilers because I'm pretty sure I've seen most of it out there on the internet. I'll still enjoy the game regardless, so.
Yeah, and we don't want to, if there's anybody watching that may not have even picked it up yet, we don't want to get too far into it, but we are going to talk a little bit about spoilers. Leigh, how far are you into this game?
I'm 90% and sort of, so it's basically the climax of the game, but I'm sort of half stuck there because there's a lot of side missions that they throw at the end that you have to do, but there's no new game plus. So once it's finished, you're done and you can't finish them. So I'm trying to get all the side missions before I actually do the last mission. But I'm ready for the final chapter now.
So, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah. But obviously it's holding up.
Mike, yeah, I mean, we're not going to talk too much about the story. We're just going to talk about not too many details, but more like how the story is interwoven into the game and things like that, and how the characters are represented and stuff. We won't talk too much about specific plot points and things like that. Yeah, I guess we might as well just get into it, and let's start off with that. What overall, how do we feel like the Spider-Man story is handled?
I'm actually, the story parts are probably one of the things that I enjoy most in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think they're pretty nicely done.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty much in that same boat. I think out of everything, it's probably, in my opinion, the best, the thing that's handled the best. I think they do a pretty good job of like humanizing some of the characters, like giving you a look at like Peter Parker's personal life a little bit, and getting acquainted with some of the people in his lives. Like I like the storyline between him and MJ quite a bit, and him and his relationship with Otto is pretty good too. What do you feel, Leigh? How do you feel about the story?
Well, I'm kind of, I suppose I should say, I'm like a comic book guy. I'm a Spider-Man guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like the story a lot because it does a lot of things you don't get in other games. I mean, you will nicely concentrate on the Spider-Man, but it goes into more than any of the other ones I played, which is all of them. The Peter Parker side, which is the more interesting side.
Yeah.
Because, Spider-Man is Spider-Man, he swings everywhere. But Peter's the one that kind of, while Spider-Man's saving the world, he can't pay his bills.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And stuff like that. And, he can't keep his go. Probably can't pay his bill because he's paying all that money on rucksacks. But he can't pay his bills.
Right.
but or backpacks, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like they do that well. That kind of, it's hard to get Peter right because he's not as sexy, let's say, as swinging around. But
Right, yeah.
so it's a nice way to do it without making it a whole telltale thing. I
Mhm.
quite like that kind of delve into him because that is mostly the more interesting part of Spider-Man rather than the swingy punchy
Right.
stuff.
Right. Yeah.
know,
That's like where he, has his moments of growth. Is not necessarily as
Yeah.
Spider-Man, but more how being Spider-Man impacts his personal life. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and others as well within the game.
Right.
Subtly, some not so much. Without which say who's in there, but if you know Spider-Man, you know who's in there. On like the Peter Parker side,
Mm-hmm.
you'll know that Mary Jane's in there. You'll know that Aunt May's in there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they delve into that quite nicely. Playing it, maybe not so much.
Yeah. I didn't really. I felt at least right now, and I'm pretty far in, so it probably isn't gonna change my mind too much. But I feel like Aunt May isn't really, I don't know, highlighted as much as I feel like she should be. Like she almost feels like an even like third ring character, where it's mostly like I would say that's probably Peter, Otto, and MJ are like the main characters, and then Aunt May is even like a third ring character.
I think she. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the period where Peter is, where I get nerdy, where Peter is, which is his left school, is not under the wing of his aunt.
Yeah, okay,
Their
that
Uncle
makes
Ben
sense.
died.
Yeah.
He's moved away from her, and she's still helping him, like he is. There's a scene quite early where she's giving him money for something because he's stuck, because he's Peter and he's useless,
Right.
like humaning. So she's still doing those things, but she's maybe not in the focus. So it kind of works within the timeline of
Sure.
where Peter is, although they alter some things.
Yeah.
So,
I guess that's always a hard thing with a lot of these superhero stories is like there's a lot of different timelines and there's a lot of different times that the story's been restarted and reworked and stuff like that. So you're always wondering, where's this one going to fit into the overarching story? A lot of times they tend to just kind of hit the main points, and then kind of like make sure they get like a greatest hits, so to speak. And yeah, I mean it feels a little bit like that where they're kind of like putting in characters like villains and stuff for the sake of almost like a little bit of fan servicey kind of stuff.
Well, the villains are very fan service. Negative Man is not really a top tier. It's quite a low tier. When you think about your Dr. Octopuses or your Green Goblins, he's quite low. He's not really a kind of. I think the fact that he is quite a lower tier villain, and he becomes across as quite threatening.
Mm-hmm.
The one you have in this one is an interesting way to do it. It's kind of
Little
they
subversion.
do rewrite a few things. Sorry.
Little subversion,
beg your
like subverting your expectations a little bit.
Yeah. It's like, well, he can be a threat and not just a throwaway.
Yeah, it's not just the Green Goblin again, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, and overall, I feel like the story's been handled pretty well with a couple of those issues.
Yeah,
and I guess connecting a little bit with that because it's almost hard in this game to separate the story stuff from the open world stuff, which is a little bit weird for an open world game. Usually you kind of have like a pretty hard divide between it, and there are obviously some examples where they do a good job of blending it together, but like there are like big character arcs not locked away, but behind the side stuff. Like the only time you ever like the what's the one you're using the cameras to find the Black Cat, right?
Oh, the Black Cat.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
Like otherwise that character isn't even mentioned in the game.
She comes in like she's DLC. She gets DLC missions in the next one.
Right,
So I don't know
yeah,
if they're
okay.
leading into that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's gonna
that
have
might
some
be a
DLC.
kind of
Even had-
weaving a thread
Sure.
If you get what I mean.
Like maybe the DLCs are going to be like these smaller characters. What was that, Derrick? Sorry.
I was kind of surprised to see like the side mission, knowing that is the first DLC that's coming.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they expand that. Like, is it going to be just more stuff within the same city? Are they going to give us a little bit more of the city? Like, are they just going to like open up interiors inside the city, and that's where most of it's going to take place? I don't know if they've really gone into that yet.
Well, if you've been across some of the rooftops, it's not tied into the story at all, so it's not a spoiler. You'll see more, and they're not tied to the side missions. You'll see like graffiti of her all over the city, her face.
Oh yeah,
on different buildings, tops of buildings.
I just
Much
figured
more
that
than you
was
do
like
within those missions.
Oh, okay, more than you would in just doing the side missions.
Side missions. Yeah, I mean, when you do the side missions, you see little pictures she has of herself, but
Yeah,
there's
it's just
actual graffiti murals of her dotted around the city.
Of those.
Okay.
There's lots of murals, kind of. If you're into Spider-Man, lots of murals, different things that you would tie back to older games as well. Like the first Spider-Man game on PlayStation was Neversoft. I don't remember Neversoft.
Yeah.
The Tony Hawk guys.
Yep.
You'll see their logo around the eyeball with the spear in it. Mm-hmm. You'll see that logo lying around the city. So little things like that. There's lots of little nice Easter eggs.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I haven't really noticed too much of that. But I mean, I did notice obviously the Black Cat things, because they're for those side missions. They're supposed to obviously help you find the. Not that they're hard in general, but they're supposed to help you, like, point you in the right direction to find her little statues. And
that was fun.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of most of the side content in that game, that was probably the least offensive, like least cumbersome, least troublesome, least pain in the ass. I guess we'll get into we'll just get into this right now. I personally think some of the side activities are extremely tedious and not a whole lot of fun to engage with.
No.
Yeah.
I can agree with that. Besides, the two like puzzle things you have in Doc Ock's lab, I think they're pretty fun. I enjoy doing those. Like, I was like always going back. I'm like, did more unlock? Because I want to do these.
Yeah. You know? I feel like there were just enough of those, because I did finish those up, and there were a couple that were a little bit challenging. Most of them were, I mean, it's like, you know, a single path really, and you just have to keep swapping things out until you get it. But if there were any more of those, I probably would have been like rolled my eyes and been like, oh, come on. How many of these?
You can actually take them out, can't you? Have them removed. Those puzzles. You can have those puzzles removed in the accessibility options.
Yeah.
One of the settings.
Yeah.
So there's some.
I don't know how essential they are.
Yeah. We'll talk about the accessibility in a little bit, in like its own topic, because there's actually a lot to talk about there. But you can disable them if you want to. Like I said, not that they're. At least I didn't find them particularly hard. But if there were more of them, I would have been probably a little put off. And yeah, but okay, so back to some more of the like outside world side activity stuff. Like a lot of it was pretty straightforward, like collecting the backpacks and taking the photographs and stuff like that. I actually enjoyed. So some of the backpacks were a little frustrating, because actually getting Spider-Man into a specific spot can be kind of a pain in the ass. But I
agree with that.
I did like taking the photos and realizing that the game's designed in a way that allows you to keep swinging around when you're taking photos, as long as you remember the wacky button configurations they assign to everything. Like holding R2 and then you press R1, but you gotta first press up on the D-pad, or you don't have your camera out.
I can't tell you how many things I've messed up because of that.
Yeah, it's a little. There's a lot. I guess it's because there's a lot. There's like a lot of controls, like a lot of moves you can do and stuff like that, and it just keeps adding on as you progress through the game. And yeah, so like the backpacks and the photography stuff, and like I said, the black cat stuff was okay. But then like,
The pigeons.
yeah, the pigeons were really bad.
The pigeons.
Um, they were annoying, and if you're trying to do them before you unlock like some of your speed boosts and stuff like that, you're just gonna have a real hard time and probably not even be able to do some of them.
I know they move so fast. And
Yeah.
if you like mess up like once, like hitting a wall and not running up, like that thing's like now like 200 meters or whatever it's counting in
Yeah.
away. It's like
Yeah, it's
it's a
crazy.
pigeon. Like really?
Super pigeons, man. The dude's feeding them a lot.
Yeah, he's feeding them good.
Yeah,
and he's
feeding
feeding
them-
them right.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't enjoy. I don't think there was a single like science mission that I enjoyed. Those things you do for Harry.
I've done.
No,
a
God,
couple.
no, the clouds
They
and
were.
stuff.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
clouds. Yeah, they were clouds. I
Like,
just
the cloud one is like, what is this? All right, I'm gonna fly through this, cough a bunch, and then have to fly through like 20 more of them.
yeah, they weren't great. I really haven't gotten into the challenge things yet, but I can imagine that I'm not probably gonna like those very much.
You absolutely will not. I can already tell you that. I can
Um,
already tell you that.
and then you have the crimes that happen, right? You need to, in order to 100% complete each zone of the city, you have to stop first thug crimes, and then later on you unlock a different type of crime that you also have to stop. And they're kind of like randomly generated, and it'll be like, oh, there's a shootout going on, and you got to help the cops, or there's a mugging happening, and you got to protect the old lady. And they're extremely like generated, you know. That it's just like you'll be doing the same shootout again, like probably at least a dozen times in the game.
Yeah.
There'll be an old lady getting mugged in an alley, and you got to beat everybody up.
I think the only one that was like kind of different were like the break-in ones, where they were kind of like inside a storefront.
Yeah,
I thought that was pretty cool.
yeah.
How that kind of worked.
Yeah, that first time that I saw one of those, it was pretty cool. It's like almost like a diorama. You were like,
Yeah, because you kind of like hopped in there, you fought him, kicked the last guy out, and you hop back out and like, all right.
yeah, yeah. That was pretty cool. But I feel like I've done the same one like 5 times already.
Yeah.
Like even the stores
You
look
say
the
that.
same.
Yeah, you say that though. I had a real fear because I played a lot. I played my fair share of Spider-Man games,
Yeah.
open world, and they kind of they regurgitate them. You're trying to get from A to B, and they keep spawning, and they keep spawning. And you've got to jump on the same getaway car, and you've got to do the. But with this, they're kind of limited. They throw you in there and teach you how to do your comment, but it's like there's 5 in this area, there's 4 in this area. Once they're cleared for the game.
Mhm.
So it's kind of it doesn't keep forcing you through every time you go down the damn street. So that's good.
Yeah.
But they are a bit canned as well. Like the getaway car, the infamous kind of.
Yeah.
They're in every Spider-Man game. The getaway car, and you're on the roof, and it's just a pallet swap roof. It is the same car, different colour, and it never changes. It's the guy in the back left, guy in the back right, or guy in the back right, guy in the back left, guy in the front, and you catch it.
Yeah.
And if you hammer the thing, you're going to do it.
Yeah. That
And
actually that particular QuickTime event is one of the tougher ones in the game, because if you're not on the spot on that as soon as that prompt comes up, you're probably not going to do it. It's like
just hammer it before.
Well, yeah, well, obviously,
you don't get penalised.
obviously, yeah, that's what you do,
penalised on other games
because you know it's
get penalised
coming.
on
And
other games.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've literally done that through the whole thing, and it's not penalised me once. And I've just done that,
because-
and I've achieved them.
because it's square. It's square to just beat the guys up too. It's the same
Oh man,
QTE for every one of the dudes.
you don't really get punished for failing the QTE at all, really.
No, you don't.
It's so
no.
lenient.
It's just like
There
you
it's
kick
almost
the
not
car and
worth
it
them being
blows
there.
up or something.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. The first time I did one of those car chases, it was pretty cool. Like, it was exciting, and I was swinging around, and then the QT and everything like that. And then it was just the same thing over and over again. There's another car chase, and they even do a very similar concept in some of the story missions. You're chasing a car, and you land on the roof, and then you got to grab the guys out of it, and and do all sorts of stuff like that. And it's, they vary it up a little bit, but it's nothing substantial. It's still the same kind of motions you're going through.
I did like the
fact they delimit
helicopter
it is
one,
not
though, was
bad.
fun.
I'm sorry.
Very good. I was just gonna say, with those events and like the car type thing, the helicopter one was pretty fun. It was like really early on,
The helicopter one.
where you had to take out both the engines, and then you'd have to watch out for the guys too.
Oh, was
And then
it was a story mission?
I don't know if it was a straight story or like part of a side mission.
That was, I remember doing that during one of the main story missions with the demons.
It might have been
yeah.
when you were rescuing Fisk guy.
Yeah, it was right
that part
after
of the
that.
game?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I remember. I don't know if maybe there is a side activity that you do something like that. I'm not sure, but I definitely remember doing that. Yeah, and that was pretty cool. When it goes into like the stylized action sequences and stuff, it does look cool, and and the cutscenes and everything, and the game in general looks really good. It's just kind of like a little bit of flash over substance, or for whatever you want to call it.
How do you feel about the combat?
The combat, it grew on me. It was really frustrating at first because, like a lot of these games, you start out really underpowered, and I feel like sometimes they throw some enemies at you that you get overly frustrated with. But as I experimented with it and figured out the button combinations, because like I said before, there are a lot of button combinations, I started figuring out a flow. And actually, if you watch me doing this right now, this was the latest thing I've done with the combat, so that's pretty much where I am on a skill level with it, I guess.
Yeah.
But
They
even
just
then,
expand from there.
yeah,
They don't change. They just expand.
Yeah, there really isn't any changing, and really the enemies they add are just kind of like different variations of the same enemies that were there at the beginning of the game. You get shield guys, and then you get different shield guys.
Yeah.
You get big brutes, and then you get different big brutes. And there's a little bit of variation to their attack, but it's really nothing substantial. As long as you're Johnny on the spot with the dodges, you're pretty good.
Yeah. And then even then, all you need is battle focus. Like, like I messed around using like the 6 like spider arms for fighting, but then I was like, let me switch back to battle focus and try this some more. And I was like, nope, battle focus, easy mode.
Yeah, battle focus is probably the best. The spider arms were pretty cool. I'll say that.
I'm 90% in now, and the second set I got, which was the Web Blossom, basically broke the game for me. It's kind of, once you use a Web Blossom, you could start a kind of like a crime or something. You do that, and it just spans it all out, and they all stick to the walls and stuff like that, and they're trapped and they're done. And then you're done. The mission is over, and it's like, that's just broken the game for me in a weird way. It's not fun to use it, so you try to change it up, but you can literally use the second move you unlock to go through the entire game.
From the pre-order, I had the spider drone, and those guys were like overkill in the beginning. Like early on in the game, you could drop 2 of them. You drop those 2, and they've got everybody stunned. You're just like, hit you, web you, hit you. All right, we're done.
Yeah. When you mentioned to me the spider drone, I checked it out, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is kind of like overpowered. A little bit.
Yeah.
It's a little wonky. It doesn't always seek when you want it to, if you're too high or something like that. But generally speaking,
and it's hard to like put it in a spot. Like most of the stuff, you can kind of aim and get it to go where you want to.
Yeah.
But they kind of just like pop up and then maybe.
Yeah. I think I felt like I was gonna go down that road with the web bomb too. It seemed like that was gonna be able to knock out a bunch of dudes all at the same time, which it didn't end up being as powerful as I thought it was when they first introduced it. But I don't even use the gadgets much. I don't know. It's weird.
It's so hard to switch between them.
Yeah, it's hard to switch between them, and then I keep forgetting that like each one has its own recharge. So like even if I use one of them, I could switch to a different one.
Yeah.
And then there's like no real rhyme or reason as to why you all of a sudden get a recharge back.
One back over another. Yeah.
It's just like just pops up. Oh, you got a Spider Drone back. All right, cool. I'll throw one of those out again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just strange, and I don't like. You know, I guess if you're having a good time with it, whatever. But if there's like huge parts of the system that you're not engaging with in the combat or something, then you kind of question like, is it there for a reason, or is it there just because they needed to, you know, check something off the box? Like, oh, Spider-Man has to have gadgets, so make sure you put some gadgets in. Like I went through a huge section of this game without even putting like assigning skill points to any of my into any of my trees. Like I went in, yeah, it popped up and I'm like, oh yeah, I got skill points, and I went and I had like 20 skill points, and I just filled out, I maxed out one of the trees and went like 2/3 through another one, and was like, all right, cool, I guess I'm gonna have more things to do or something, but I wasn't really like feeling like I needed it, you know. I wasn't like
right. I think what I did was I threw in the ones that built focus, depending like if you hit right or if you dodge. Because like I said, with that battle focus, if you can get that to fill up almost instantaneously, it's done deal right there.
Yeah, and that's also the way you heal too.
Yeah,
which is a weird in itself. Yeah.
The thing with the combat for me is that it's fun, it's fast, it's responsive, but it feels really light. I don't feel like I'm really connecting like you do with, maybe we're going to probably do this later, but an Arkham, which is crunchy. You punch someone, you feel like you just knock their head off. With this, it kind of, the only really impacts you get is when you do the special, which is kind of, you do the
finisher
triangle and they do the big spin around matrix thing. Then you feel like hitting something. When you're actually fighting, it feels so light when you're hitting them and they're hitting you that sometimes I can't tell I've been hit.
Oh yeah, that happens a lot.
Until my thing resets. It doesn't feel like there's any impact at all. It looks smooth and it looks like you're flipping around like nobody's business, but I'm not getting any contact. It feels like I'm not contacting.
It doesn't have like that snap from like Arkham or like even with Infamous open world too. When hitting people, you could feel like you felt like you were hitting people, or like in Infamous using like the chains and stuff.
Yeah,
like you felt like they were
it's like in weight, I think.
Yeah.
There's no like, like you said, weight behind it. It's just and maybe that's how Spider-Man hits people. You know, maybe he isn't like as like, I don't know, like maybe he's not as strong.
Well, he's
as
punching
Batman.
cars, so he's got the proportionate strength of a spider. He can punch cars into the ground and stuff like that, and he can like punch through doors. He can rip doors off. So the punches there, it's almost like they have the lightness of the way he can dance and flit around. It's not really translated to the actual the contact.
Yeah, the connection of when you're actually hitting something.
Yeah.
Because like you said, like
ripping things off.
Yeah, and Batman is like real, like every hit is like psh, psh.
He's a bruiser. Yeah. He's a thug, basically. But,
like I said, it's got like that part of it has its up and down. Because I was glad it didn't feel like Arkham in the combat, but at the same time, maybe it's a little too light in certain parts of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this weird, like it's definitely a lot like Arkham because, well, Arkham is heavy on you're not actually doing anything in the combat. You're just kind of pressing the button and Batman's choosing the target for you. And that's very much what's going on here too, almost to the point where when you have like a group of people like at a distance and like two of them have guns but two of them don't, and you throw your web and it auto targets to some dude that is just running at you. It's like, no, dude, that's not who I want to shoot. I want to shoot the guy that's gonna, nail me with the gun. And that gets a little bit frustrating. And And then of course
Speaking
the brutes that have that ridiculous 3-hit combo that they do.
Oh yeah.
And if you get
Mhm.
hit, oh my god,
Yeah.
they'll kill you. They take
But-
like a huge chunk off of your life bar when just one of those connects, and they do 3 without like any hesitation. They have like such a huge reach too. Those are probably
They
the only
spam it, don't
enemies. Yeah, those are probably the only enemies that are really frustrating in the game, for me anyway.
Mm.
Yeah, I'd say like talking with like that kind of stuff too is the one thing I haven't got to work right yet is the grabbing of the gun and then like hitting them with it. Like,
Oh really?
yeah, I haven't like successfully done that like once yet, and I've
Huh.
tried.
That's yeah. You just hold
Well,
the
even if you
triangle.
press down,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can like
maybe you haven't
shoot
unlocked
to
it
'em.
yet.
No, I've got it.
Because there's
I've
an
got it.
unlock later where it's like you can successfully do that and throw it back at them.
Yeah, I have
So
both
maybe
of
you
those,
need
'cause
to
I got the one for the weapon
Oh.
all the way up to the rocket, and then I have the one where you can throw everybody up to the brute.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I've thrown the brute, but I just haven't been able to like actually get that weapon stolen to
Oh,
whack 'em
yeah.
with it. So
Yeah, I do it. It's pretty useful. And it's like I said, it's a little finicky with all that kind of stuff, like trying to target a specific enemy and getting him. But when I do get the web on the guy, it does pull it away. I think you got to be on the ground. I don't think you can do it from the air, because every time I've done that, I've just webbed the guy up to me.
okay,
Yeah.
So if you're on the ground, that's I think that's when you can do it. And then if you, I don't know if it's the same skill or a later skill, but he'll like spin the gun around in like an object.
yeah,
And-
that's
and-
what I was trying to
and-
do. 'Cause
yeah.
I have those unlocked because the last tier that's the rocket,
Mm-hmm.
and then the one for the enemy, the last tier is being able to spin the brutes around like that and throw them.
I don't know.
Oh.
I don't know. I have to see what you're doing and see if
Yeah,
I can be like, oh, that's what you're doing wrong or whatever. Again,
Yeah.
it is a little bit finicky either way. So,
Oh.
I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with what you're doing or something like that. It could just be not registering properly. Yeah. Going back to the side stuff, I guess we can incorporate this into talking about the progression, because every game has to have some sort of RPG element in it these days. The side stuff is like almost required that you participate in it in order to get the upgrade currencies that you need to unlock the suits, unlock the gadgets, unlock. I guess you don't need it to actually upgrade your skills. That's just experience points. But
Yeah.
all the other stuff, you need these upgrade tokens that you get from completing side stuff like the science missions and finding the pigeons and stopping crime, the crimes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
you
you-
need like the base takeovers for like the
Yeah.
devils. And,
Yeah, you literally can't get these any other way. Like you cannot get crime tokens without stopping the crimes in the boroughs of the city.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it's not side content. Like for me, side content means optional stuff. Like if you want to just stick with the main mission, you can get through it. And maybe you can just main the main mission and not even acquire any of these gadgets. But it seems a little. It doesn't seem like you'd be able to do that, especially with some
No,
of the,
there's enemies when you get to the end that you must have some of those pull down moves and stuff like that.
yeah.
You must have those, otherwise you're not getting some of the enemies. You're not getting them without a lot of trouble, a
Yeah.
lot of lead work.
Yeah.
So you do need them.
Yeah,
the guys
so
with the whip. I hate
oh
them.
my god, those whip guys. Oh my.
It's nothing.
Yeah, I'm
Look at
sure.
those, That's all I'm saying.
I'm sure it's nothing. Because
Mhm.
until those guys, the brutes were nothing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're
Anyway,
cheap, the whip guys.
yeah, tell me about it. Uh,
Mm.
so yeah, so yeah, it's a little, for me anyway, a little frustrating because I like to choose. I like to choose between, oh, I just want to focus on the story. I want to get through the
Yeah.
story and then worry about the side stuff, or do some sort of balance, but
Mm.
balance on my own terms. And
Mm.
this kind of doesn't allow me to do that because I have to engage with some of the side stuff in order to unlock some of the abilities I want.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's unbalanced as well. I'm 90%. I've almost maxed almost everything. Research tokens, which you get from the puzzles, the Otto puzzles.
mhm.
I've got about 40 of those left over that I've got nothing to spend on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, challenge tokens. If I want to get the top tier stuff, I have to literally do every one of those to the absolute peak to get enough. I'm about 20 short, and I'm about 20. There's about 20 tokens available. It's like
Yeah.
it's right to the wire, so it's unbalanced. I've got like so many left over, and then you have to really scrabble in with probably the worst side missions, which is the challenge missions.
Yeah.
I can't say, but the yeah, and it's like it is really unbalanced between that. It's like, well, I can do that, and then I've got enough left over, but I have to scrape for these.
Yeah. There
It's-
needs to
oh.
be some sort of like token exchange.
Yeah,
Like go to the bank and be like, "Oh, can I trade these science tokens for these challenge tokens, please?"
for my rent.
Yeah, for rent, yeah. Yeah, that's just kind of like a bummer for me. It seems like you guys are kind of in the same boat on that.
Yeah, they'll never not suck.
Yeah, and if the side stuff was a little bit more interesting, I wouldn't feel as negative about it, but it's kind of, because some of the stuff is like frustrating and not a whole lot of fun to engage with. It's just not great to put all that kind of stuff behind that.
Or obvious filler.
Yeah, I mean that's what it seems like it is when you get down to it.
Yeah.
So
Other mechanics.
we touched a little bit on comparing it to other superhero games, but where does this stack up in your mind, Leigh, as the resident superhero game expert? That's your
The
title
one
now.
that buys them all for like the mug, you mean?
That's your title now.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
What other Spider-Man games or other superhero games?
I guess let's just start with Spider-Man and then spread out from there. So,
There's
let me ask you something, Leigh.
Mm.
How is the swinging in this game compared
the swinging
to?
is good.
Is the swinging good?
The swinging is actually good.
All right,
It's
10 out of
simplified.
10. Swinging is good.
It's actually simplified, as you have kind of that. It's like the Assassin's Creed thing. Hold down R2, and you're going to jump over and swing over everything.
Yeah.
There's been games that do it better. There's the last one they did, which was based on the Spider-Man movie before Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
It had a system where you've sampled this. Left bumper does your left arm, and right bumper does your right arm, and you alternate, and you kind of get a pendulous thing, and it feels like you're swinging as opposed to just kind of pushing forward.
Okay.
So that sort of thing, it does it better. It's like, but there's so many of the open world games that do kind of the same thing. So you've had, I mean, Spider-Man 2 obviously is the touch point, way back when the PlayStation, GameCube one. That's the kind of the one everybody goes back to as the open world thing. And they kind of been much of a muchness. Isn't much different to any of the other ones they've had. I think it's been about 5 of them. Because you fall into brackets of, you've got your side-scrolling Spidey, which is like Metroidvanias. Then you've got, which I kind of prefer, because as much as it's cool to swing around the city like that, it's nice to be able to have a set level structure that's nicely designed and specifically set out, as opposed to just swinging over buildings that are there because it's just a facsimile of Manhattan.
Right.
Nice level structure. There's one called Shattered Dimensions, which is very level based. It's you traverse this in very clever and smart ways. It's a testament to like level design, as it were. This doesn't do anything much different. It just does it slicker.
Yeah.
It does it a lot slicker with a much bigger budget.
Mm-hmm.
It does it well. Some things it doesn't do well. I think arguably in all of the other ones, it's notable when you play Spider-Man and it tells you how to do the swinging and the fighting. Now, when it comes to wall crawling, it's like press this to run up the wall, and then you'll sprint to the top of the building. But it doesn't stop to really tell you to crawl around, because when it does, the game absolutely falls apart. Like none of the other open world Spider-Mans do.
Yeah.
The camera kind of twists and turns, and there's a level on a certain build. It's not a spoiler because the building, you can see it when you swing around the city, there's Oscorp, Norman Osborn's building, and you've got to climb up that in some sort of mission. And trying to actually traverse that and taking a left turn when the camera wants to look up, because that's where the camera wants you to look up because it wants to be cinematic. And then you're walking down into a thing that you... That's the worst I've ever seen in a Spider-Man, having a crawling mechanic. And I can't believe nobody's picked up on it. It makes stealth missions almost impossible.
Yeah,
it's not so bad when you're inside.
That mission in particular,
kind of contained.
That mission in particular was, the whole thing was bad. Like, that was just a real bad mission. And yeah, I agree definitely with I mean, just crawling in general sucks. Like it's such a like a momentum breaker. Like you're swinging around, you're going super fast, and then you do this crawl thing, and it's like so slow. And slow, it's so like you can't get even a perspective on where you're going, and it's one of those things where you point in a certain direction, and you don't actually go in that direction. It's like, I don't know. It's
like the stuff that should be super simple in the game is the hardest to do. Like if you want to jump down to like a ledge or just move up just a little bit.
And like there's stuff designed around it, like all those backpacks and stuff, and then like nobody was like, "Hey, this is kind of a little shitty." Well,
trying to walk along a tunnel, the roof of a tunnel, is not fun.
No.
You go up the wall and then you keep falling off because you hit some sort of invisible, like it's the M64 and you hit an invisible wall to drop back down.
Yeah.
Which happens when you're trying to. It's not a spoiler. I don't care. You'll get to the point where the bad guys have got sniper rifles.
Yeah.
And you can pick them off stealthily.
Yeah,
so you can climb around the open world buildings.
They're right there in the video right now.
To the edge. You'll go to the corner of a building, and it's 50-50 as to whether you'll just go around that corner of a building, walk on to the other quarter of the building, or you'll just hit a wall and you'll kind of go up and down like it's a N64 invisible wall.
Yeah, he gets
really weird.
He gets caught on the geometry a lot when he's crawling around like that. Like
it's really odd.
And like the comparisons to Assassin's Creed, it's like Assassin's Creed's been not having that issue for like over a decade.
Yeah.
Like Assassin's Creed figured out traversal on buildings like that so long ago, and like why would you have a situation like that where like complex geometry just really screws it up that way? Like you can't manage it. Like here we are in this video right now, me trying to get this dude, like figure out how to get this sniper in this tower was just like what?
Yeah, like jump here, jump down, go around. Okay, now climb up the front.
Eventually I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to jump off, swing, hope I swing in the right direction to knock him out. I don't remember exactly what I end up doing. I think about it for a while, as you can see, because I don't trust the game to do what I want it to do. See, I screwed up first there, and then there we go. I ended up getting him. Yeah. But really, I didn't. I just shot him with web. I didn't actually get him. He's knocked out, but that's not really. I don't know. There were a lot of moments like that.
If you think back and you think about when it taught you to do all these things, it teaches you how cool the swinging is, how cool the fighting is, and you can run up the building, but it doesn't stop to tell you about crawling around on stuff like that. It's clear that they overlooked it themselves as well. Because once you come to do it, it's horrid. Yeah. Trying to climb through a fire escape is kind of hit and miss.
At least you don't get
it's weird because
caught on the fire escapes like you did in the older games. Like
No.
if you were like rubbing up against the building and you hit a fire escape, it was just like you're totally dead in the water. At least here, it like kind of like the swinging and everything, you kind of like bounce off everything. You don't like hit a lot of. There just isn't a lot of moments where you hit into something and you're just dead stop.
Yeah.
Like so. That you could tell. Yeah, it just seems like, they put a hell of a lot of work into making that swinging feel good, and then they didn't put it nearly as much into making the crawling feel good.
Nope. And it's never been a problem with any other Spider-Man game. It's always been the PS1 or the N64 one does it better. Because it'll kind of almost transparents the ceiling and stuff like that, so you can see. It doesn't look very realistic. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They're edging towards realism because it's a very realistic Manhattan.
Yeah, it doesn't look pretty, right? It just, again, like form over function in a way.
Yeah. So it does. You do traverse it a lot better than you do the other Spider-Man games to some extent until you hit those walls.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the best for that. But when it comes to other, you can do the comparison with Arkham, which is what it has. When you look at GTA, to some extent, you can get in a GTA and get a helicopter and stuff like that, or you can get in a plane in Tanks Row. But what Spider-Man and Arkham have in common is they have a verticality to their open world that a lot of the others don't. It's like tangibly open world. And there's much more to do, I find, in an Arkham game. Because the whole thing about Spider-Man is you're slick. You don't want to be stopping on the rooftops.
Yeah.
You have to when you do a mission.
I guess there should be the distinction between Arkham Asylum, which is kind of like more or less a Metroidvania, like linear levels. Not linear. It's open. In the same sense that Metroidvania is. But then like Arkham City and Arkham Knight were much more open. Like those were like big open worlds that you could explore with little things to find here and there. So Spider-Man definitely falls into more the Arkham City, Arkham Knight, right? Not Arkham Asylum.
Not Asylum, no. But the city obviously have more gangs on the roof. You got the Riddler, but they probably overdid the Riddler things. It was 200 of the damn things. But the Riddler things, which are a lot more complex and stuff like that. But he's supposed to live in the rooftops. This is the thing. He's supposed to be there. Spider-Man's supposed to skip across them, and he tends to. He only really go to the rooftops when a submission tells you to.
Yeah.
But, it's going up there on the fly, stalking from one to move to the other. It's like that's where they lose it, because you don't do much in the upper things apart from side missions and commuting, really, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going from one area to the other unless you're taking the trains.
Yeah.
Which that's weird to me. Why would you, if your whole game's done going around the city, why have you got a fast travel system? You can get from one end to the other in about 3 minutes.
Yeah,
Manhattan doesn't seem to be that big.
Yeah, but I could get there in 15 seconds.
Not with a loading screen.
No, that's about as long as it takes.
He does his thing like sits on the phone.
Yeah, there's only like 5 of those or something like that, and I've seen them all like 50 times. But it is faster, especially when the mission's like across the entire city or something like that. But usually I do lean on the side of like, I'll just I'll swing there. But like, what if on my way there some cool shit happened, right? Like, what if like I look at it and it's like, oh man, that thing's like 2,000 meters away. Should I fast travel or should I swing? If I fast travel, nothing cool is gonna happen. If I swing, something cool could happen. But I don't have that option because nothing cool is gonna happen. Like I'm not gonna find something awesome. There's gonna be some cool side mission that unlocks as I'm swinging around.
No.
Like the people that like sometimes you interact with a little bit. There's nothing to them. There isn't fun to
high five them.
Yeah, you high five them or you take a selfie with them or whatever, but then that's it.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just like that's why they put the fast travel system in, right? It's because if they didn't, people would be complaining about how much they have to swing around and nothing happens in the game.
But on the other side, in fairness, I see a lot of people enjoying just going round because, from what I can understand, it's a pretty, apart from your Avengers building or your Doctor Strange townhouse, it's very accurately Manhattan. So I think people just get a kick out of travelling down a pretty realistic, from what I can understand, Manhattan.
Yeah.
I think people enjoy that so much that taking it more than I would because I'm a London shitbag. But someone that's from Manhattan, I've been to Manhattan, they know those things. There's all of those landmarks, all those tiny little things you see.
Yeah.
Some of those murals you see. So I think there's that thing that you get from it. It's kind of a very Americana type thing, I guess.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So
I guess if
there's
you don't have that though, it's not like if you don't live in New York or you've never been to New York. I mean, it just completely like there's nothing to it. There's no charm. It's just another city with a bunch of tall buildings. Like Spider-Man, there's like no other city. Well, I don't know, maybe London, but there's very few cities where Spider-Man could actually exist with his skill set.
Yeah.
Like New York City is probably it. There isn't a whole lot of.
Sell it.
Yeah, there's really no other city that's that big with so many tall buildings that he can swing. Like there are smaller cities that have a lot of tall buildings, but they're very condensed. They're not nearly as like even like California, San Francisco, or Los Angeles. Like those are heavily populated cities, but they don't have a lot of like tall buildings spread out everywhere. They're kind of like centralized, and Spider-Man couldn't really spread his wings, so to speak, out there.
No.
Yeah. I'd be like the same out here in Orlando. Like it's all pretty far apart.
Yeah.
As far as like buildings that like he'd be swinging from, like.
Yeah.
Actually, talking about a bit of an aside, but talking about the 5 boroughs and Manhattan and stuff like that, and love letters to New York. There's a really nice one, quite a sweet one, I think, in a weird way. Obviously, I know it's not been long, so September 11th and the Twin Towers are obviously not there anymore.
Yeah.
But we understand that they're not there. If you go up to the building that is adjacent to where it would be, you can see in the reflection of the windows the Twin Towers.
Oh, really?
Which I thought was I thought it was quite a nice little touch. I thought it was quite a sensitive little touch, or quite a heartfelt touch.
Oh,
So
I didn't even know that.
Thing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They could do that.
And they're there.
They could do that, but they couldn't actually reflect Spider-Man.
They give you a sort of half shadow. Have you noticed, by the way, sometimes Spider-Man's bigger than the entire office?
Yeah.
Depending on how they build the blocks.
Yeah. No, I noticed that like the first day because I was like, oh man, I could get a really cool shot of the reflection of Spider-Man in this with the photo mode, and I activated photo mode, and there was no Spider-Man was not reflected in the window at all. The rest of the city was. There was other buildings and shit like that, but Spider-Man wasn't there, and I'm like, fuck, man, I'm not.
Yeah.
Photo mode sucks, but not really because it's not photo mode's fault. It's the stupid reflection thing.
I was watching Digital Foundry, and they tell you how they get it so intricate and detailed. They're 2 different character models. When you're far away, they're just literally like black blocks. They're just black kind of man-shaped blocks, and then they swap them out the closer you get. So it's not like you get closer and then like you get more layers or anything like that. They kind of, and it's the same with the office buildings. It's a different set of whatever they used to build it as you get closer. But sometimes it doesn't catch up in the same way. So you end up being the size of about 2 office adjacent buildings.
Or maybe
so
maybe you just swing right into the middle of one and
like
get stuck.
Yeah. Yeah. That was another thing we're going to say about how I don't understand how they can get some things wrong and so right. I was talking about getting stuck on stupid things on the side of buildings.
Yeah.
There was a thing where I was swinging. It was this dynamic thing. I didn't plan it. It wasn't canned. But you got the water towers type things.
Yeah.
And as I swung towards it, I thought I was going to clip it, but he didn't. He went to this like seamless animation, and he kind of did the twirl through it. It kind of read the area.
Yeah.
Completely kind of off the cuff, and kind of span through seamlessly without clipping anything. It went out the other side. So if they can do that, with stuff you're swinging into that's kind of
randomly,
wireframe.
yeah.
Why the fuck they can't do it about a building that's about 300 foot high? I don't
know.
understand it.
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. Like
Yeah.
I never seen him do any
you will
weird.
get.
Huh.
Yeah, I
Okay.
always
Yeah.
tend to get stuck on everything.
What's that?
Like, and I tend to always get like stuck on stuff. Like
Yeah.
especially the one backpack. I think it was a backpack,
Mm.
and it was the building. It's like a gray building, and it's got like the gargoyles on it, on like each
Yep.
of the corners up near the top. I had
Mm.
a hell of a time trying to get past those things to get where I needed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um.
Yeah.
All right. I guess
So-
I do want to talk before we wrap it up. Talk about the accessibility options, because some of it was a little bit surprising for me. So you have the normal stuff with like subtitles and like colorblind options and stuff like that. But then there's like options, like we mentioned earlier, to completely turn off puzzles. Like you don't have to engage with the puzzles. Now, I didn't turn any of that on, so I don't know what actually happens if you engage with a puzzle. Like, because like those not the Oz, but auto puzzles in his lab, you actually get things from there. You get XP, you get just a few research points. It's not too many, but you do get some stuff. So I don't know if it just gives it to you. I don't know, like you press the button and it auto solves it.
I think it gives you an option to skip.
Okay,
And you hit the button. It says like complete it or continue with it.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I got them pulled up right here because there's some like weird ones too.
And then there's disable QuickTime events, so you don't have to deal with any of those too. And I'm assuming those just autocomplete. Like
yeah,
they don't
it's
even
called QT autocomplete.
yeah. Which is, I don't think I've ever seen that in a game.
No.
Nah.
Lately I have been seeing like the option to toggle between rapidly pressing a button to do something and holding the button. I have seen that recently, and this has that as well. But it's just interesting to see, you know, the ways to, like, in a lot of ways, fundamentally engage with the games to change. Like, like, you know, not doing the QuickTime events is, you know, something that's being removed from the game. Like, that's a gameplay element that's being taken out of it. And so are the puzzles. The puzzles may be even more so, because those are like actual things that they spent time building. Maybe not a whole lot of time, but they spent time building it. And there's a lot of them in the game, and they're tied in various places here and there. But just completely removed, like completely optional. And I don't know what else. Like, what are we gonna see moving forward? You know, like what's the next step? Like we already have. Obviously, we obviously have difficulty options. Like you can choose easy, medium, and hard. And those change things. Different things for different games. Like sometimes it's just the enemies don't hit as hard and they have less health, but some games they actually fundamentally change the way the enemies behave, or there are less enemies or more enemies if it's harder. It's just interesting to me to see how like different games handle those kinds of different like accessibility options.
I think the strange thing with this one is, because you was talking about this recently yourself in the group about modders taking away the game, the like a combat element, say, or enemy element from a thing, which is obviously a fan-led thing. It's interesting to see with this one that kind of thing is actually it's console-based, and it's also kind of developer pushed.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see it's kind of taken away from them. Are they taken from it? I don't know. Are they taking from the idea that people want this, or
I think so. I think
accessibility because it's a kids game as well.
Well, yeah, I mean it's Spider-Man, right?
Thinking about it, it's maybe like they're there because a younger kid could enjoy it. Like,
but I mean, like you also have people that are disabled that may not be able to hit those quick time events when they need to, or like maybe they don't have the motor function to, rapidly press the square button when they need to, so it's easier for them to just hold it.
But then they're not going to get far with the combat, are they?
Well,
I would think it's more to do with people that are intrinsically against QTEs, because there are people that are for them and people that absolutely hate them. So I think it's probably just trying to find a middle ground.
Yeah.
No, I think it's an accessibility thing. I think it's for people that may not be able to engage with those kinds of things as well as the rest of us. I mean, that's exactly why colorblind options are put in games. I think if you bump the easy, I think if you bump it down to easy and disable, the QTEs and stuff like that, I think the game would kind of be almost a little bit autopilot. There may be some challenging stuff, like some timing dodges and stuff like that. But I think by and large, if you were at least somewhat able to, press the buttons and move about, you'd be able to kind of probably get through it. Because it's really not that hard of a game. There's just like some just real frustrating elements to it that if you just made it a little bit more easy, like if the roots didn't have 3 hits, maybe they only have 1, and then there you have the ability to knock them out. Maybe that's that's easy enough,
And then the other thing, obviously, because it's not you could just do the easy thing and literally just switch down the difficulty. But if you are, say, a less able gamer and have trouble with QTEs, you don't have to kind of bump that down and lose your own kind of, well, I have to do easy because maybe I can't manage that element of it. I can manage the rest, but I can't manage that. You don't get penalised for that. You can just take an element of the thing you're struggling with out of that.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah, I can see that, with that. So you don't have to bump it down. It's like, especially if you're playing something like Doom, and you get like or Wolfenstein, you get the dummy. You don't want that. But maybe you might just like to take a thing out to find, you know what I mean, like take out one of the quick kills or something, like if you're playing a game like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Just elements you can pull out.
I don't know if either of you tried last year's Nier Automata on the easiest difficulty. No. But that game basically that game basically plays itself. Like you press the button and you hold the button and who are you? What, B4? Who's the main character?
Isn't it?
Well, they didn't play it.
Okay.
I know of it.
Anyway.
Was it like A2 and B1 maybe?
Something like that. That's how profound that game impacted me.
So it just nerfs everything, basically.
Yeah. Basically, you can play, and it says it. It says this is if you want to experience the story. And that's exactly what it says in Spider-Man 2. If you choose the easiest difficulty, it says this is the mode you choose if you just want to experience the story. I don't know exactly what it disables or how easy it makes the combat. I haven't checked it out. But that's the description under the difficulty option. And in Nier it basically made the combat like non-existent. You had to press a button, but she would like auto attack basically. And it was basically the only reason I completed that game, because I hated the combat. I found it super tedious and just repetitive, but I was interested in seeing where the story went. So then I bumped it down, and that's what got me through that game. So I'm for that kind of stuff. I'm for like tailoring those experiences, because games are more than just one thing. They're not just there's story, there's gameplay, there's graphics, there's sound, and the quality of a game is how that all comes together. But it is possible to pick those things out. Like you'll listen to a game soundtrack outside of the context of the game. Like you'll put it on your your iPod or whatever, you get the album or something like that, and you listen to it in the car or something. So it stands on its own, and sometimes graphics don't really stand on their own, but art can. Like, you put a poster of a game on your wall, like Cuphead or something like that, like a screenshot from that game, you could put on your wall as a poster. You know, it looks so.
Yeah.
It looks so good. So yeah, I'm like, it's like, I wish more games would have some of those options. So even for like repeat playthroughs, like you don't want to spend 20 hours grinding through something, so you turn that part of it off just so you can experience the story or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm on the fence about it a little bit. I don't know. It's some things, like if you were to do that to a Blood Bowl, for instance, I wouldn't see the point of going through the entirety of that game by pulling out combat or taking out enemies. It wouldn't make a very interesting travel log, because you've got the story context is tied to the characters you fight. So if you remove those enemies, it kind of removes the point, and you're literally just wandering around a massive city, which is kind of depressing to do so.
Is it in order to get the context from those enemies, is it you have to fight them? Like, is the actual act of fighting them reveal the story to you, or is it just like some little bit you get at the end of it, like that connects it to the overall story?
But the description of the things goes into sometimes the design of the monster, you know, and it could be kind of, it's all tied together. So removing that element, you're removing part of the lore anyway. You know, like something like.
Okay, so I guess
the thing that's on the.
I guess what I'm saying is, like, if Bloodborne had a similar to Nier Automata, where it's just kind of like an autopilot mode where you do beat the enemy, but it's not nearly as difficult. Like, you know, you hit the button a few times, or like you know, half health or something like that, or like it takes forms out of the bosses. You know, like instead of 3 forms, you have just the one form, and it lasts the whole fight. Would that, like, but would you still be able to get the story and the lore from that?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But obviously, we're at the point where they're literally removing enemies completely, so you can kind of.
Yeah.
What did they do with recently? Alien Isolation.
Yeah, Alien Isolation.
But they took out the androids and the alien, which I'm not sure about that, because that's the hook. Otherwise, you're literally just walking around a space station. You might as well just look at a mod.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the hook for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it may not. For me, it was absolutely not the hook. The hook for me in Alien Isolation was exploring that space. Yeah, the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Being on that space station. For me, the alien and the sneaking around and shit, that fucking sucked. Like, that's why I stopped playing that game, because I didn't enjoy engaging with any of that. But I did enjoy wandering around the spaceship, the space station, finding the tools I needed to progress. You know, it was like, you know, Metroidvania kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I just didn't. The whole engagement with the alien, and like they were like I don't even remember. It was like there was like people. There were people that if you got spotted by them, they would attack you or something like that. I just didn't enjoy that very much.
Androids, no. What about Prey? How would you feel if they took all that sort of stuff out of Prey?
Yeah, I mean the combat in Prey was kind of shitty.
Yeah.
I mean it was okay. I did engage with it, and I had a good time here and there, but by and large, my enjoyment of that game was exploring the space, seeing the different areas of the space station, and like finding all of the little lore bits that you found about all of the characters, because all of the people that were on the space station, they had like records of them. Like every single body you found was a named NPC. And you know, there was like a whole story about this group of people that they were really into like D&D, and as you progressed through that game, you found little bits of it. You found their drawings of their characters, and then eventually, near the end, spoiler if you haven't played Prey, it's not really a main story spoiler, but you find where they played the game. and it was like a cool moment where you had all these little things working together, and then you had the moment of the payoff moment, and it was like a cool like it wasn't even the main thing, it was like a side thing. That was what, you know, got me through that game, including like the story, which didn't end up really going anywhere, but it was a cool and interesting story that had at least hooked you from the beginning, and whether or not it delivered is for another discussion. But that, you know, that's what had me going back, was exploring the world. Same thing with BioShock, you know, a game in a similar vein. Like the combat in BioShock's not great. Like the first person shooting in BioShock isn't great.
No.
But I like being in Rapture. I liked like unraveling the story of Andrew Ryan and all the people that he was associated with, and why that place ended up being what it was. I don't know. I mean, that's that, you know, and that's mine. That's how I enjoy those games. Yeah.
But then we're talking.
What's that?
Like elements out of talking about two different things, I guess. Where you're taking like some elements out of a Spider-Man, but we're talking about going to the other extreme and like doing almost like a deconstruction of what an action video game should be by taking that element out. So it's almost two completely different things, isn't it? It's kind of I've just completely flipped that game on the head by removing that.
It gets to that point, but I guess it's very much a case by case basis.
Hello?
Because if you took the I think Leigh is having some connection issues.
He just froze a little bit.
Yeah, and he's saying hello like he can't hear us.
But yeah, what
Anyway,
were we talking about?
Anyway, I think what hello, Leigh.
It's all very interesting.
I guess it's like just to wrap this up real quick. The difference to me anyway is that if you took the combat out of Spider-Man, what's left is kind of crap. Like that there isn't a whole lot of substance. But there are games where like, you know, there are elements that can stand on their own without the combat. Like if you take the combat out of it, obviously there are examples where it would absolutely not work, like in like a there he goes, in like a Devil May Cry game or something like that. Taking the combat out of that game would be absurd because the story doesn't really stand on its own. It doesn't really have a lot going for it without the stylish action combat and stuff like that. So it's just really a case by case basis. Not every game is going to fare as well. But for me, you know, one of the big things that Leigh brought up and some other people brought up was like Dark Souls and Bloodborne. And I think that those games, as much as the difficulty is tied into them, I think they would be okay without combat, or at least much easier combat. I think you'd be able to get the lore and explore those worlds because I think they're beautiful just themselves without the enemies in them. And the lore is you know, a lot of it's tied up into item description, so if you get the item you can read the description, and like finding NPCs in the world and conversing with them as well, and you can find those without having to necessarily engage with the combat. But I don't know. That one of the in that article that I posted from PC Gamer, one of the games that people are modding is Dark Souls 2. So maybe I'll take a look at it at some point and see if it does actually hold up like I think it would, or maybe it really doesn't. Maybe it's just boring and you don't get what you need out of it.
There's always going to be a tug against that though anyway, isn't there? Because there's people that relish. That's the whole hook of the game for them is
right,
kind of the toughness of the combat, and they're always going to be negative about it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's what it comes down to. Is like, I don't really care. Like if you don't want it, fine. No. If you do, great. But I don't really care about your. Yeah, it's just like, I don't agree with this, but
Why does it? Yeah.
Why does it
offend
affect
you as an option?
Right. It's the offense as like taking offense to it.
Why do you want it to
that
stop from
is
being
what
a
bothers me.
wider audience?
Yeah.
To where maybe if it hits this wider audience, they'll keep coming. It's more
Right. They'll sell more and they'll make more. Right.
like
That's how it works. Right.
Ways to keep stuff alive, because now we're starting to get into where we have a lot of older franchises are dying off.
And just to add one final thing before we wrap up, a lot of game developers, I know if they have the budget and they have the time, they would put these things in their games, because there are interviews that you can find with them saying that they would. And sometimes you even see it added in afterwards with patches and things like that. So the notion of like, well, this developer wouldn't like this or this developer wouldn't like that, you really can't speak for them, because you're not them, and that kind of argument doesn't really get too far.
Yep, that's a different conversation.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's kind of the people that think they own the process, which they don't. They own the copy when they buy it.
Right.
So let the developers develop.
Right, because that's what they do. They're the experts on that.
Yeah.
All right. I guess that's gonna wrap up our discussion of Spider-Man. Unless anybody has any last words on anything that we missed that you want to get in, or I guess I know we were pretty negative on it, but we are playing the game, and there has to be something there that keeps us going. It can't just be we're waiting for the inevitable train wreck or something like that.
No.
Like moment to moment, this game is fun. It is a well polished game in a lot of respects, not so much in some other respects. And I think if they have, which it sounds like they're going to, have another shot at a Spider-Man game, I think they have a good groundwork to maybe iron out some of the issues and make a really solid follow-up game. Like, cut out the crap, put in, like, double down on the good stuff, and make a good solid sequel.
Seeing as no spoilers, who they introduced into the game, which is a friend of Peter. If it's a co-op Spider-Man game, that'd
could be.
That would be.
We didn't. I guess that's one thing we didn't talk about, was the different perspectives that you do play the game as. Because there's you play as a couple of different characters that aren't Spider-Man, and for the most part, I would say that when you're playing as them, you're reminded about how cool it is to be Spider-Man, rather than how awesome it is to see the world from a different perspective.
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
About that.
Okay.
One of those characters.
Okay. But it was cool. It's cool to see the world from, and it is a different gameplay type, because you're not flipping around, you're not beating people up. It's more stealth focused and stuff. So it's cool. Like, again, it's one of those things that, like, if they bring that idea into the next game and figure out a way to make it a little bit better, then it could be really cool. But here it felt like it was a little bit underbaked. Like it was halfway there. Like they had the idea, like, oh, let's do this, and then they didn't really have the
execution.
Yeah, the execution. They didn't have the idea that really made it like make sense, like to spend as much time as they did on it.
Like a couple of them were like, oh wow, like when this part happened, like playing as a different person, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. This caught me. But then sometimes it's like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. Again, I guess that's like, oh, we're playing as them again. Oh, great. Like, even if it was like, maybe it's just too many times that this perspective changed. I'm not sure, but yeah, maybe in the future they'll future installments, they'll nail that down a little bit better too.
Figure it out.
Yeah. All right. I'm like, I've got some of a review written, like a proper review. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to finish it. There's a lot, so it's probably going to be a pretty long one. But
yeah,
you know, that look for that on the website at some point, hopefully. And yeah, guess that's gonna wrap it up. Thanks, Leigh, for hanging out.
Sure, that's okay.
Thanks, Derrick.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Yeah.
No problem.
What say you, Derrick? Says Sebastian.
What do I say? I've said a bunch of stuff, but you missed it, buddy.
I know you're late.
Right at the end.
But you can watch it. You can just watch it because it's on the internet. It's here. It's there forever now. It will
it's your
also
new favorite podcast.
I'll also be putting a version up on YouTube, if that's your preferred viewing location, and the audio feed will get up on the podcast feed as well. And that's Voxel Voice across the board. We're fortunate enough to choose a name that nobody had chosen anything before, so everything gets to be Voxel Voice. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for talking about Spider-Man, and I guess we'll see you next time.
Yep.
Peace.
Cheers.